Reginald always said you were the smart one. Too bad smart doesn't put food on the table the way loyalty does. And sweetheart, you were never loyal to this family." Those were the exact words Patricia spoke to me at my father's repast. Not at the hospital. Not at the graveside. At the repast. While holding a glass of sweet tea in my father's house. The house I grew up in. The house that still had my childhood drawings pressed between the pages of the Bible on the mantel. She said it in front of people. Loud enough for my Aunt Celestine to look away. Loud enough for my cousin Darnell to suddenly find something fascinating on his plate. Loud enough for it to settle into my chest like a stone dropped into still water. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I set down my fork and looked at her the way I look at documents with errors I've already caught. I just said, "You might be right, Patricia." And then I watched her smile. She had no idea what I had already done. My name is Renee Caldwell Okafor. I am 34 years old. I am a licensed estate attorney in the state of Georgia, a notary public, and a former adjunct professor of property law at Emory University. I mention this not to brag. I mention it because none of that mattered to my father until it benefited someone else. My father was Reginald James Caldwell. Everyone who knew him called him Reggie. He was a big man, 6'2", broad shoulders, the kind of laugh that filled a room before he walked fully through the door. He ran a commercial HVAC company in Atlanta for 31 years. Built it from a pickup truck and a handshake to a fleet of 7 vehicles and 16 full-time employees. He was proud of that. He should have been. He built it with his hands and his word. What he built with me was more complicated. He married my stepmother, Patricia and Du Bois Caldwell, when I was 14 years old. She was 32. He was 48. My mother had passed away 2 years before from ovarian cancer, and my father, in his grief, found someone who smiled at him at the right moment in the right church lobby. I tried to love Patricia. I want to be honest about that. I tried the way a 14-year-old girl tries anything, with too much effort, not enough armor. But Patricia had a way of shrinking me. It was never anything big. Nothing you could point to and say, "There, that's it, that's the crime." It was the way she'd say, "Oh, Renee thinks she's a lawyer already," whenever I read the fine print on something. It was the way she'd tell her friends I was difficult or too serious. It was the way she made my father laugh at my caution instead of trusting it. She called herself the peacemaker. She was the storm. I left for undergrad at 18. Spelman College. I left on a scholarship I applied for without telling either of them, because I had already learned that anything I was proud of became something Patricia found a reason to minimize. I came home for holidays. I sat at the table. I passed the sweet potatoes. I answered questions about school without going into detail, because detail became ammunition in that house. My father would look at me sometimes across the table with an expression I could never fully translate. Pride, maybe. Regret. Or maybe both, tangled so tight they were the same thing. He never said he was proud of me in front of Patricia. Not once. When I graduated from Emory Law, he came to the ceremony alone. He told me later that Patricia wasn't feeling well. I nodded. I thanked him for coming. We ate at a restaurant near campus and he ordered the catfish and talked about his business, and I listened, and when he dropped me off he squeezed my shoulder and said, "Your mama would have been real happy, Renee." That was the most my father ever gave me. I took it. I put it somewhere safe. And I went home and cried for an hour. Then I got up and passed the bar. The first sign that something was wrong with my father's health came in the form of a phone call from an employee named Travis. Travis had worked for my father for 11 years. Good man. Honest. He called me on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing a trust document for a client and said, "Miss Renee, I'm real sorry to bother you. But your daddy came in yesterday and he couldn't remember the combination to the lockbox. He's done that combination every morning for 6 years. I thought you should know." I thanked Travis and set down my pen. By the time I flew to Atlanta that Friday, my father had been diagnosed with early-stage vascular dementia. Patricia met me at the door of the house, my father's house, with the expression of a woman who has already decided how a meeting is going to go. She was wearing a silk blouse. Her nails were fresh. She had clearly been waiting. "He's resting," she said. "The doctors say he needs calm, not stress." I looked at her. "I'm his daughter. I'd like to see him." She let me in. Barely. My father was in his recliner in the den, the TV on low, a cup of tea going cold on the side table. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not in height. In something harder to name. He looked like a man who had been slowly convinced that his own edges didn't matter. He saw me and he smiled. That same big smile. Unchanged. "There's my lawyer," he said. I sat down beside him and held his hand. Patricia stood in the doorway the entire time we talked. Like a guard. Over the next 6 months, I flew to Atlanta 11 times. Each time, Patricia was there. Each time, I was treated like a visitor in my own father's life. Each time, I noticed something new. The checking account had been restructured. His business had been placed in a limited liability company, one I hadn't been told about. His original will, which I had helped him draft in 2019, had been revised. I found that out not from him. I found that out from Travis, who had been quietly keeping notes in a spiral notebook because Travis loved my father and didn't trust what was happening. The new will, as best as Travis could tell me, left everything to Patricia. The house. The business. The investment accounts. The life insurance policy. Everything. My father had signed it 8 months after his diagnosis. I sat in my car outside my father's house on a cold November evening and let that land. Then I did what I do. I went to work. I need to pause here and explain something about estate law that most people don't know, because most people only learn it when it's too late. A will is not the only instrument that governs what happens to a person's assets when they die. There are other things. Things that move quietly, beneath the surface. Things that don't wait for probate court. Things that are already done before anyone opens an envelope. I had known since 2019, since the night I sat with my father at the kitchen table and helped him draft that first will, that the smartest protection I could ever give him was not the will itself. The smartest protection was everything I set up beside it. In 2019, when my father was healthy and sharp and signed every document with full understanding, I had structured certain things very carefully. A revocable living trust that held the business, with me listed as the successor trustee. A transfer on death deed on the house. Beneficiary designations on the key financial accounts that could not be overridden by a will. Patricia had never asked about any of this. She had never been curious about the legal architecture underneath her husband's name. She had been too busy being comfortable. And comfort, in my experience, makes people sloppy. The revised will, the one she had apparently arranged, controlled only what a will can control. Which, because of how my father and I had structured things, was not very much. She had spent months positioning herself to inherit everything. She had inherited the residue. And now my father was gone. And the repast was ending. And Patricia was standing in the middle of his living room with a smile on her face and sweet tea in her hand, telling me that loyalty was the currency that mattered. I had let her finish her sentence. I had let her feel it. And then I went home and waited for Monday morning. The family meeting was Patricia's idea. She called it a gathering, her word, and she set it for the following Saturday at the house. She invited my Aunt Celestine, my father's brother Uncle Prescott, a few cousins, and the family pastor, Reverend Holloway. She framed it as a time to come together around Reggie's wishes. I drove up from Atlanta Friday night. I booked a hotel because I would not sleep under that roof. Not anymore. I wore a navy blazer. Simple. Clean. The kind of thing you wear when you're not trying to be seen, because you don't need to be. The living room was arranged like a church meeting. Chairs in a loose circle. Patricia at the center, already talking when I walked in. I noticed she had moved my father's recliner. It was gone from its corner, replaced by a small decorative bench. That detail told me everything I needed to know about who she thought she was now. "I'm so glad everyone could come," Patricia said. She touched her chest. Reggie would have wanted this. He was a family man. He wanted to make sure everyone was taken care of. Aunt Celestine nodded. Uncle Prescott looked at the carpet. Reverend Holloway folded his hands. Nobody looked at me directly. Patricia held a folder. The folder, I assumed, contained the revised will or a summary of it. She was building to something. I could feel it in the pacing of her sentences, the way she kept slowing down at certain words. Reggie's wishes. His final decision. What he wanted. She had rehearsed this. "I know some of you may have questions," she continued. "About the estate. About what Reggie left and where things stand." She paused, and in the pause she looked at me. Just for a second. Just long enough for it to mean something. "I want to be transparent. Because that's what he would have wanted." She opened the folder. I let her go. I sat with my hands in my lap, my face neutral, my breathing even. I was listening the way I listen in depositions, not for what is being said, for what is being assumed. Patricia summarized the will. The house. The business accounts. The investment portfolio. The life insurance. All of it, she explained gently and with enormous sorrow, had been left to her as his wife. It was his final decision. It was made in love. She hoped the family would understand. She looked at me again. "Renee," she said carefully. "Your father did love you. He told me so many times." The room went very still. I could feel everyone waiting to see if I would cry. Or argue. Or leave. I did none of those things. "I know he did," I said. And then I opened my own folder. It is hard to explain what a room does when information arrives that rearranges everything. It doesn't shout. It doesn't react. It gets quiet in a very specific way, the way a held breath sounds when it's finally released, except in reverse. It's the sound of air being pulled back in. That's what happened when I set the first document on the coffee table. It was the deed to the house. The transfer on death deed. Recorded at the Fulton County Courthouse in March of 2019. Signed by my father, witnessed, notarized. Transferring the house, upon his death, to me. Patricia's eyes moved to it. "The house," I said quietly, "transferred to me the moment he passed. It doesn't go through the will. It doesn't go through probate. It already happened." No one spoke. I set the second document down. The business, Caldwell Climate Solutions, LLC, is held in a revocable living trust established in 2019. I am the successor trustee. As of the date of my father's death, I assumed control of the trust and the business. Patricia's folder was still open in her lap. She was looking at it like it might say something different if she stared at it long enough. I placed the third document. The primary investment account at Edward Jones has a transfer on death designation. My name. The secondary account at the credit union is the same. These accounts, too, fall outside the will. Uncle Prescott made a sound. Not a word. Just a sound. The life insurance policy, the largest one, the $500,000 policy through his business, lists the Caldwell Family Trust as beneficiary, which I administer. I looked up. Aunt Celestine had both hands over her mouth. Reverend Holloway had stopped folding his hands. Patricia was very still. The kind of still that happens when a person's body understands something before their mind has finished arguing against it. "The revised will," I said, my voice exactly the same as it had been the whole time, "controls whatever assets fall outside of these instruments. Which, as best I can calculate, amounts to the contents of the house, the personal checking account, and one vehicle. I closed my folder. I don't want any of that. She can keep it. I want to be honest about what I felt in that moment. It was not triumph. Not exactly. It wasn't the clean feeling you expect revenge to be, the feeling those stories tell you about where the music swells and you walk into the light. It was more like standing at the edge of something very long and realizing it was over. The way you feel at the end of a hard winter when you notice one morning that the cold is just gone. It felt like a door closing. Gently. With both hands. Patricia found her voice first. Renee. Her voice had changed. The warmth was gone. What was underneath it was harder, sharper. These documents, when were these done? Your father, he didn't, he wouldn't have. He did, I said. In March of 2019. When he was fully competent. I have the notary records, the county filing receipts, and a video he recorded that day explaining his intentions in his own words. If you'd like to contest anything in court, you are welcome to. But I would encourage you to speak with an attorney first about what contested trust and deed cases cost in time and legal fees. Silence. I stood up. Smoothed my blazer. Picked up my folder. I'll be contacting the business employees on Monday to brief them on continuity. Travis already knows. I'd ask that no one disturb the business property or accounts in the meantime. I looked at Patricia one last time. She looked smaller than she had at the beginning of that meeting. Not smaller in size. In something else. The thing that had made her feel like she owned every room she stood in. That thing was gone. Thank you all for coming, I said. I know my father would have appreciated it. And I walked out. The drive back to the hotel took 11 minutes. I know because I counted them. I needed to count something. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my chest was doing something complicated, this tight, expanding thing that I didn't have words for yet. I parked. I sat in the car. I let the quiet settle around me. Then I called Travis. It's done, I said. He exhaled so hard I could hear it through the phone. Miss Renee. Your daddy, he knew, didn't he? He knew what he was doing when he set all that up with you. Yes, I said. He knew. He always said you were the one who paid attention. Travis's voice was rougher now. Said you got your mama's eyes and her good sense. I pressed my lips together. I looked out the windshield at the parking lot lights. Thank you for keeping those notes, Travis. Always, he said. Always. The call started Sunday morning. Not from Patricia. She went quiet after the Saturday meeting, the specific quiet of someone consulting a lawyer and being told what they didn't want to hear. The calls came from family. Cousin Darnell called first. He apologized. He said he hadn't understood what had been going on. He said Patricia had been telling everyone for months that my father was estranged from me, that I never visited, that I didn't care. I told him I had flown to Atlanta 11 times in 6 months. He was quiet for a long time after that. Aunt Celestine called next. She cried. She asked how she could help with the business. I told her the best thing she could do was to not repeat things Patricia said about my father's estate unless she heard them from me directly. She said, "Baby, consider it done." Uncle Prescott texted. He sent 3 words, "You are Reggie." I read that text 4 times. I saved it in a folder I keep on my phone for things I need to remember when I feel like I can't do this anymore. The calls I did not return were the 2 that came from numbers I didn't recognize. Both left voicemails. Both identified themselves as Patricia's relatives. Both said some version of the same thing, that I was being cruel, that I was dishonoring my father, that a real daughter would have shared. I listened to each one. I saved them for the record. And I deleted them from my morning. On Monday, I drove to Caldwell Climate Solutions. The building was a low, wide structure on a commercial strip in East Atlanta. My father's name was still on the sign. It was still on the door. He had a photograph on the wall inside the entrance, Him and his crew from 2008, standing in front of the original truck, everyone laughing at something just off camera. I stood in front of that photo for a long time. Travis met me in the conference room with coffee and all 16 employees who wanted to come. Not everyone came. 3 of the newer hires stayed in the shop. That was fine. What mattered was the ones who came. I told them the truth. I told them there had been some uncertainty about the business following my father's passing, but that the business was held in a trust structure and that I was the successor trustee. I told them their jobs were not at risk. I told them my father had left the business to continue, not to be sold, and that I intended to honor that. A woman named Keisha, who had handled the office administration for 9 years, started crying quietly in the corner. She pressed a napkin to her face and didn't say anything. I let her be. Some things don't need narration. At the end, one of the senior technicians, a man named Gregory who had worked beside my father for over a decade, put out his hand and shook mine and said, "We're glad you're here, Miss Renee." I thanked him. And for the first time since my father died, I felt something ease inside my chest. Like the first long breath after something that had been pressing on you finally lifts. I had work to do. Real work. The kind my father did. The kind that mattered. And I was ready. The legal response came 17 days later. Patricia had retained an attorney. His name was on the letterhead of a firm I recognized, mid-size, Atlanta-based, solid reputation for elder law cases. Which told me she had been smart enough to know what kind of lawyer she needed. The letter was careful. It alleged undue influence. It alleged that the documents I had prepared in 2019 represented a conflict of interest, given that I was an attorney and a beneficiary. It requested documentation. It hinted at litigation. I read it twice. I made notes. And then I called one of my law school classmates, a woman named Iris Fontaine, who was now a partner at one of the largest estate litigation firms in Georgia. I told Iris what was happening. She was quiet for a moment after I finished. Then she said, "Renee, did your father record a video statement when he signed?" "Yes." "And he was evaluated by a physician within what window?" 4 months before signing. Full cognitive assessment. Clean bill at that time. And the notary was independent? Not you? Not me. A notary from a Publix location 2 miles from the house. Iris made a sound. A quiet, professional sound that meant they have nothing. "Send me everything," she said. "I'll respond to this letter. And Renee, I'm going to need you to not lose sleep over this. Because this case, if they take it to court, will be one of the cleanest trust defenses I've ever worked." I thanked her. I sent her everything. And I slept that night for the first time in weeks. I want to talk about my father. Not the legal version of him. Not the business version. Not the man in the documents. I want to talk about Reginald James Caldwell as I knew him, because I think sometimes when you're in the middle of a fight for someone's legacy, the person themselves gets smaller and smaller until they're just a name on a deed. My father made the best grilled chicken in the state of Georgia. That is not an exaggeration. He had a dry rub that he kept in a Ziploc bag he never let anyone see him make. He grilled on Sunday afternoons in the summer in an old white t-shirt and the same Atlanta Braves cap he'd had since 1996. He'd stand at the grill and hum, low and to himself, old Marvin Gaye songs he'd pretend not to know if you asked him. He was the kind of man who remembered everyone's birthday. Not the date, he'd write those in the back of his Bible, but the feeling of them. He would always call on your birthday and just say, "Happy day, baby. You glad you got here?" And you would always say yes even if you weren't feeling it that day, because the way he asked made you want to be glad. He told me once, when I was studying for the bar exam and I called him at 2 in the morning completely convinced I was going to fail, he said, "Renee, you've been the smartest person in any room you've walked into since you were 4 years old. The bar exam doesn't know that yet. Go on and teach it." I passed. He never knew what Patricia did in those final months. I believe that fully. I believe his mind was slipping and she moved into that slipping the way water moves into a crack. Not maliciously at first, I think she genuinely didn't understand what she was doing was wrong, because she had always defined her comfort as something she deserved. But that didn't make it right. And it didn't change what I had already done. Patricia's attorney sent a second letter 3 weeks later. It was shorter. Significantly shorter. The undue influence claim had been reviewed against the timeline I had provided, the physician's assessment, and the video recording. The attorney, to his credit, was honest with his client. The letter advised that litigation would be costly, difficult, and likely unsuccessful given the robustness of the trust documentation. It was a withdrawal. Dressed in formal language, but a withdrawal. Patricia did not contact me directly. She didn't call. She didn't write. I didn't expect her to. Some people exit quietly when they understand the math. What she did do, I found out later, was call Aunt Celestine and say that I had manipulated my father. That I had taken advantage of his love for me. Aunt Celestine, bless her, told her, Patricia, that child sat with Reggie 11 times while he was sick. 11 times. You want to talk to me about advantage? Start counting visits first. Celestine called to tell me what she'd said. She laughed the whole way through it. I let her finish before I said anything. Thank you, Aunt Celestine. Your mama raised a good one before she left, she said. And your daddy knew it, even when he didn't say it right. The business ran its first quarter under my trusteeship with a 6% revenue increase. I want to say that was my doing. It wasn't. It was Travis, and Keisha, and Gregory, and the 11 other people who had been running Caldwell Climate Solutions with loyalty and consistency for years. What I did was get out of the way of their momentum and make sure the finances were clean. I also renegotiated 2 commercial contracts that had been underpriced. I caught a vendor invoicing us incorrectly, not dramatically, but consistently, a small number every month. I corrected it. I installed a basic financial tracking system that Keisha had been asking for 3 years but that nobody had prioritized. My father had been a builder. I was a maintainer. Between the two of us, the business had a future. I drove up to Atlanta more regularly now. I had a standing Thursday lunch with Travis and Keisha at the Jamaican place on Covington Highway that my father had loved. We would eat and talk through the week's updates, and sometimes we'd just talk about him. The funny stories, the stubborn decisions, the way he'd shake his head at technology but secretly be delighted every time something new worked. The Thursdays helped. The work helped more. For months after the reading of the will, or the non-event it had been, I stood in my father's house for the first time as its legal owner. Patricia had vacated. She had been given 60 days and she had used all 60. When I arrived, the house was cleaner than I expected. She had taken everything that was hers, and a few things that weren't, but nothing I would fight about. She had left the furniture. My father's recliner was back in the corner. I don't know if she moved it back or if one of the cousins had come by, but it was there, in its place, facing the television, with the side table beside it and an old TV guide on the table that was from January of the previous year. I sat in the recliner. I sat there for a long time. The house smelled like wood and thyme, and faintly, impossibly, like his dry rub, that blend of paprika and garlic, and something he never admitted to. The afternoon light came through the kitchen window the way it always had, falling at that particular angle on the yellow countertop. I had sat in this kitchen at that counter every Sunday morning of my childhood and watched my father make coffee in a percolator he refused to replace because it had been his mother's. I looked at the counter. The percolator was still there. I stood up and walked to it and ran my hand along the top of it. It was cold. And dusty. And completely, entirely itself. I picked it up. I took it to the sink. I cleaned it. I found the old Folgers tin in the cabinet, the same one, I was almost certain, and I made coffee the way he made it. By feel. Too strong for most people. Perfect for Sunday mornings alone. I poured a cup. I sat back in the recliner. I drank it. The people who called me cold, after everything came out, and there were a few cousins who had been in Patricia's corner, a distant uncle who sent a message on Facebook that I didn't read in full. They used the word calculated, as if that were an insult. My father built an HVAC business from one truck to a fleet of 7. You think he did that without calculation? My mother managed our household on a teacher's salary while fighting stage 3 cancer and still kept enough savings to cover her funeral costs because she did not want anyone else to carry that weight. You think that happened without calculation? Black women in this country are called calculated when they are simply prepared. I had been preparing since 2019. I had prepared with my father's full knowledge and full consent, on a day when he was sharp and present and asked every question and read every word. He had looked at me across that kitchen table after the last signature and he had said, "Renee, whatever happens to me, you make sure this stays in the family." I told him I would. I kept my word. The last conversation I had about Patricia came from a direction I didn't expect. It was my father's pastor, Reverend Holloway. He called on a Thursday in May. He asked if he could come by the house. I said yes. He was a tall, thin man in his early 70s with a white mustache and the careful eyes of someone who has seen a lot of people at their most complicated. He came in, accepted the water I offered, and sat at the kitchen table. He didn't ease into it. "I owe you an apology," he said. I waited. Patricia spoke to me many times over the past year. She told me things about you and your father's relationship that I now understand were not accurate. I allowed those conversations to shape how I showed up in this family's life. And I showed up on the wrong side. He folded his hands on the table. "Your father talked about you to me more than he talked about anyone. He used to say, 'Holloway, my daughter is going to be all right, no matter what I do or don't do.' But I wish I had done more." My throat tightened. "He was proud of you," Reverend Holloway said. "He just didn't always know how to say it in the room with other people in it. That was a weakness he had. Not a verdict on you." I looked at my coffee cup. "I know," I said. "I wanted you to know I know it too." We sat in that kitchen for another hour. He told me stories about my father I hadn't heard. Small ones. The time he quietly paid for a family in the congregation to keep their lights on in February. The way he'd stay after service to help fold chairs even when his back was bothering him. The way he used to sit in the third pew on the left and mouth the words to every hymn but never actually sing because he was, according to him, a man with religious convictions about his own voice. I laughed at that one. A real laugh. When Reverend Holloway left, I stood on the front porch and watched his car disappear down the street. The evening was warm. The neighborhood was quiet. A kid was riding a bike on the sidewalk across the way, going back and forth, the same loop over and over, completely unbothered. I thought about my father. I thought about my mother. I thought about the two of them, young, before I was born, before everything that happened. Two people who built something together, who made a daughter, who gave her their best and what was left of their broken hearts. I thought about the percolator. I went back inside and locked the door behind me. And for the first time in a very long time, I wasn't carrying anything that wasn't mine. Let me tell you what I've learned. Not about estate law. Not about trusts and deeds and beneficiary designations. About this, about being the one who pays attention in a family that rewards the ones who don't. I learned that preparation is not the same as coldness. Being ready is an act of love. It means you cared enough about the outcome to do the hard work before anyone was watching. I learned that some people only respect the version of you that serves them. And the moment you stop being useful in the way they've defined useful, they will rewrite your history. They will call you difficult, or calculating, or disloyal, or strange. They will do this because the alternative is looking at themselves. Don't argue with them. Don't explain. The documents will speak when the time comes. I learned that grief and clarity are not opposites. You can love your father and still see exactly what was being done to his estate. You can miss him every single morning and still walk into that family meeting with a folder and a steady hand. Both things are true. Both things were true for me. I learned that the people who never showed up will have very large opinions about what happens when you stop covering for the ones who didn't show up. Ignore those opinions. Focus on the folder. And I learned, this is the one I want you to hold, that you are allowed to build something so solid, so documented, so quietly airtight, that when someone comes to take it from you, they find out the door was never open. You are allowed to protect yourself before anyone declares there is a threat. That's not plotting. That's not revenge. That is simply knowing what I know, and using it for the people I love. Including myself. My father's photo is on the wall of Caldwell Climate Solutions now. Not the serious one, not the company headshot he had taken in 2014 where he was trying too hard. The one Travis printed and framed is from a company barbecue in 2017, my father mid-laugh, Braves cap on, tongs in hand, looking like the exact kind of man he was. The kind who built things. The kind who lasted. Every time I walk through that door on a Thursday and see him laughing on that wall, I say the same thing. Not out loud. But I say it. I kept my word, Daddy. And then I get to work. The house is still on Greenfield Drive. The percolator is still in the kitchen. The recliner is still in the corner. And every Sunday morning, I make coffee too strong for anyone but me, sit in that chair, and watch the Atlanta light come through the kitchen window the way it always has. That's not an ending. That's a life. And it's mine. Before you go, watch this next. There is another story already on your screen right now, and trust me, you do not want to scroll past it. I can't tell you what it's about. But I will tell you this, somebody sat quiet for a very long time. And when they finally stopped being quiet, everything changed. Click on it. You'll understand in the first 60 seconds. To everyone watching Shattered Vows right now. If this story hit you somewhere real, if you've ever been the one paying attention in a room full of people who weren't, drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Atlanta? Chicago? London? Lagos? I want to know how far this one travels. Now listen. My best friend Tanya said this channel would never reach 1,000 subscribers. My cousin Jerome laughed and said nobody wants to sit and watch a story that long. My coworker said I was wasting my time. My little brother Marcus. Wait, I said no Marcus. My little brother Deshaun said people only watch 30-second clips now and long videos are dead. They were all wrong. And every single time you hit that subscribe button, you are personally proving every single one of them incorrect. So do me this favor, subscribe to Shattered Vows right now. Not later. Right now, while this is in your mind and in your chest. Hit the like button because it tells the algorithm that this story mattered and more people need to find it. And leave a comment, anything. I stayed till the end. I'm watching from Dallas. Patricia had it coming. Whatever you feel. Just say something. Because somewhere out there, someone who feels unseen in their own family is going to find this channel and feel a little less alone. And that only happens if you help us grow. Subscribe. Like. Comment. Share this with one person who needs it. We'll see you in the next story.